Quick disclaimer before we begin, the PEMF podcast does not contain any medical advice and the content provided is for informational purposes only. If you have any health concerns, please visit a healthcare professional. Hi guys, welcome back to the PEMF podcast. This is episode 11.
And episode 4 of our mini-series called PMF Talk, where we answer your questions that you've left on our social media pages, you've left on Reddit, or you've left kind of anywhere on the internet, to be honest. If you want to leave any questions for our next episode of PMF Talk, please leave them underneath this episode if you're on Spotify or on YouTube, or if you're on any of our other social media platforms, just leave us the question and we'll reply on there and we'll make sure to answer it in one of the podcast episodes as well. But we'll go straight in with our first question, which actually comes from the PMF subreddit. And it starts, the best PMF frequencies for improving immune system and fighting viruses. I've bought an Omni-Mat, thanks. What would you kind of say is the best frequency for improving your immune system and fighting viruses?
Okay, so there's a standard answer that comes with this question, which we'll come to later. But let's look specifically at the immune system and PEMFs for the immune system. So we know that if we apply PEMFs on a regular session, and if we're getting healthier and better wellness, we're going to improve our immune system overall. People always want this. I've mentioned this in PMF podcast before. So people always want this, kind of like, I call it the Bible. They want something that they open up with the answer for every specific frequency and what frequency that works best with compared to conditions. So my answer to this is always quite standard. Applying PEMFs is the important thing. So if you're applying a frequency between 1 to 50 hertz or 1 to 100 hertz, which is seen as like the low, more natural frequencies, then in turn we're going to get good results. And if we want to help our immune system, we want to apply PEMFs to that. So when looking specifically at the immune system and relating that to PEMF, there are studies that have been done. And there are devices that will have a specific setting for the immune system, and they will utilize a number of different frequencies, or maybe just one frequency. They tend to be higher frequencies. So when I say higher, I'm talking about like in the 20 hertz and maybe a little bit above that. The reason for this is that they've done some studies using these higher frequencies and they're getting good results from it. But that's not to say that if they didn't use lower frequencies, they wouldn't get just as good results. And also, people vary. So again, if you've got a study which says 15 hertz was great for the immune system, that might be different for somebody else. So our bodies, they utilize these different frequencies different ways. So my answer to this, in summary, is apply PEMFs to a range, okay? Talking about the OMI system that this customer's actually mentioned specifically, the OMI system comes with 3 programs. Program 1 is good for using in the mornings, and program 2 is better for using in the afternoons because it uses lower frequencies in the afternoons, higher frequencies in the morning on the first program. Program 3 is to choose your own frequency. So this option 3, has been put into a number of different devices. And again, for people like this that just want to narrow it down and use one frequency because they've seen that a study is good for them for the immune system. But my advice would be use program 1 in the morning and program 2 in the afternoon. You're going to give your body a range of different frequencies. And as long as you're putting that PMF alongside healthy eating, getting exercise and doing all the things that is also going to benefit you, then your immune system is going to be a result, and that's going to benefit you. So use devices that offer you a range of frequencies within the therapeutic range, and that is the best offer. That's the best advice I can give anybody, and that's not just for the immune system. That's for all the different other conditions. So again, if I've got arthritis on my knee, very, very different scenario to the immune system. But again, apply the PMF at therapeutic benefit frequencies at different times throughout the day, and you're gonna see results.
Definitely, great answer. We'll go into our second question now from the same PMF subreddit. Which devices, if any, would be recommended and safe to use throughout the night to help with sleep? I've been reading about FlexPulse and the NeoRhythm primarily. Was wondering whether these were suitable for people or if people had any other recommendations. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. So kind of what device might you use for sleep throughout the night, or what kind of recommendations do you have?
Okay, yeah, good question. And actually, our next PMF podcast we're going to do is specifically on sleep. So I'm going to go into things a little bit more in detail in that episode. But specifically for this question, there's two ways of answering this question. And it also depends on how you want to apply the PMFs and what for when it comes to sleep. So if we're looking at trying to get to sleep, so obviously that is one option. We're trying to apply the PMFs to help us get to sleep. That's one way. The other way is that we want to apply our PEMF session while we're sleeping. So most PEMF devices, you get the full body mat or you get a localized applicator, and we want to apply sessions throughout the day. If we don't have time in the day and somebody's coming to me and saying like, I want to put a device on my bed because I just don't have time in the day and I want to get my PMF session while I'm sleeping, then you're looking at a full body mat, one that's comfortable that you can use maybe underneath a mattress topper or any other ways to apply a full body session. And you can put it on your bed, you can leave it on your bed, and you can apply those sessions maybe while you're getting to sleep. And then once again, some people kind of set their alarm slightly earlier in the morning and they will do a session while they're snoozing and then they'll get up. So they've got their two sessions kind of throughout their sleep cycle, if that makes sense. Most people are talking about PMFs to get them to sleep. And that's kind of an additional benefit with a lot of PMF devices. And this particular customer seems to me like that's what they want to use it for, because they're looking at devices like the FlexPulse and the NeoRhythm, which are predominantly designed to change the frequencies within the brain when we're talking about going to sleep. So these devices are good devices to use. The FlexPulse comes with small applicators, which you can just pop under the pillow or to one side of the pillow. The intensity of the FlexPulse is 200 Gauss, and actually we would say that's quite intense for sleeping. So we recommend people that go for that product to actually lower the intensity when they're using it for sleep. So you can put it onto intensity 1 or intensity 2, which is between 20 and 40 Gauss intensity. People that actually use it on the full intensity, 200 Gauss, sometimes it can actually have a not so good effect on getting them to sleep, if that makes sense. Frequency wise, low frequencies, completely essential. When I say in other podcasts and even in my question just answered earlier, and I'm saying that frequencies are less important when it comes to sleep or making you awake throughout the day, then they're super important, because we want to use the different brain frequencies. And for sleep, it's delta. So we're looking at the frequencies between about 1 and 4 hertz. So the FlexPulse has actually a dedicated program for sleep. And I know the Omni NeoRhythm is also another good one that they've mentioned here, which has lower frequencies specifically for sleep. There's another device as well, which is Celerate, which has a program for sleep specifically, and that's the night mode. And again, that runs 1 to 4 hertz, and the intensity on that session is about 10 Gauss. So for sleep, you want to be looking at something low intensity, low frequency, and that can be applied either close to the head, or, as I say, if it's a time-saving activity, then you're looking at a full body mat, which is nice, comfortable to use, and you can get those sessions lasting at night and first thing in the morning.
Yeah, brilliant. I feel like that covered quite a lot of different answers or questions people may have. But that was all of the questions for the PMF subreddit. So we'll just kind of move on to the questions that I got from Reddit as a whole. And the first one is, can you use PMF on kids? Are there any contraindications of using PMF on children?
So from my opinion, it's very, very safe to use PMF on kids. But you have to look at the manufacturer's recommendations on each product. And a lot of them do have an age limit. So they would say that it's safe to use on children from 12 upwards or from 16 upwards, or some of them don't mention it at all, and they're okay with using on children. So from experience, and I've got 2 children now, and if I'm trying to influence their sleep, or if I'm trying to help with a hurty knee or something, I will apply PMFs. I know how safe they are, and I'm happy to apply them onto my children. However, as I say, always check the manufacturer's recommendations. One of the risks associated, or potential risks, is that children are obviously going through a growth stage. So applying any kind of therapy, or any kind of therapy that's going to influence the body to perform to a higher standard, or to the optimal standard, the risk is that you could possibly influence the growing stage to be increased, if that makes sense. So there was a study that was done where they used fish, for example. So this will all come clear soon. And what they actually did is they applied PMFs to fish when they were in their infant stage, and they watched them as they grow. But they applied PMFs through the tank, and they did that at 100% or throughout the day. What they were trying to find in this study was that the fish would grow up healthier, and they'd have less chronic illnesses, and more of them would survive than the tank with the non-PMFs, if that makes sense. And they get some great results. They saw that a lot of the fish were healthier, and a lot of the fish were getting less chronic illnesses. What they found as a result, which they weren't expecting, was that the fish that were treated with PMF were slightly larger than the fish that weren't treated with PMF. And again, this is the risk that you could influence the growth stage. However, when we're talking about PMFs that we use and the devices that NuMed sells, most of the devices are a 20-minute session, once a day, twice a day. So not using them enough time to be, influencing the growth or anything like that, but it's a potential risk, and that's what a lot of the manufacturers will mention as to not use on children. There's also the safety of using an electronic device on children. So again, it's more of a legal standpoint from most of the manufacturers as to why it's listed as a contraindicator.
Cool. As I say, that seems to be a very common question on Reddit. Everyone, we've seen it quite a few times. Can you use PMF on children, or can you not? But we'll jump now into our next question, which is also from Reddit. It's from someone saying, I had a treatment on a PMF mat on Monday afternoon. The next 2 days were symptom-free, but by late Wednesday, numerous symptoms had started to return. Thursday was like any other day with PM. Has anyone used one, and what was your experience? If you don't know what PM is, it's polymytosis, and it is inflammatory or inflammation on the muscles. So why do people kind of experience this? It's quite a common thing that I see on Reddit. People have a treatment on the Monday, and then by the Thursday, it's been a couple of days, they kind of seem to have had the effects wear off. Why do they wear off over time? How comes it isn't a constant thing as such?
Yes, it's a great question, and it's a good way of breaking down PMF from into the origins to understand how it works. And like with any therapy, to be honest, you're going to get those effects, and they will eventually wear off. PMF therapy, there's a lot of clinics that offer. We work with a lot of clinics in the UK that offer PMF therapy, and that's great. And it gives people an opportunity that can't afford to necessarily buy their own system, or at least want to try it before they invest in their own system, to go and try PMF therapy and feel the benefits for themselves. So, but it's a big point as to why we always kind of talk to people about buying a system to use at home and having access to their own system so they can use it as often as they like. So PMF therapy, when we're looking at it, what it helps is it's going to separate the blood. So if we've got a chronically ill person, usually their blood viscosity is quite thick. So their blood is stuck together, and it travels around the body in, like, they call it coin cells. So applying PMF therapy to someone who's chronically ill, one of the things that we can see through the microscope is that this blood will start to separate, and it travels around the body better, and you get better oxygen distribution. as well as different vitamins around the body. So that's one of the benefits of PMF. The other is that it helps with the positively charging the cells within the body. So again, with a chronically ill person, you're going to get quite negatively charged cells, quite unhealthy cells, and cells that aren't replicating very well. And we're trying to almost recharge the batteries in those cells. And in doing so, we're creating an environment in the body to heal. Those effects, unfortunately, like with anything, all good things come to an end. And they tend to last with PMF up to about 8 hours. About 8 hours. And then sometimes with people, they last a bit longer. So that's why people are saying they'll get one session and they feel good that day. They feel good the next day. And then things start to return back to normal. So having your own system at home is really important, because you can apply this therapy once a day, twice a day. And, depending on how much time you have, PMF is a long-term commitment. So it's not like a quick fix. And applying PMF as a complementary therapy alongside healthy lifestyle, healthy eating, and exercising regularly, you're going to get those benefits over time. So someone who's chronically ill, who has more time on their hands, might necessarily want to use a PMF system like 2, 3, even sometimes 4 times a day. Not fully necessary, because you get those benefits and they last up to that time, but people might want to apply it for more often. But as you become healthier, and myself, I'll give an example. I'd say I'm quite a healthy person. I apply PMF therapy once a day, and it's all I need as a decent preventative measure. But I also use PMF for sleep.
Brilliant. Yeah, hopefully that answers a lot of people's questions. That is quite a common one, again, that I see people talking about when they've gone to maybe a clinic or a professional environment and they've got PMF, kind of wondering why the effects seem to fade away. But we're going on to our last question now. It's actually from one of the YouTube comments. So as I mentioned already, if you are on YouTube, leave your question in the comments and we'll make sure to answer them in one of our next episodes. But this one reads, I have an odd question. I found an ultrasound bone healing simulator kit at a shop for under $20. I don't have any broken bones or any major ailments, but I'm wondering if the low price would be good to pick up. Would be using it to simply help my circulation, etc., as I'm a bit stationary at my computer for many hours a day. So would you think about maybe purchasing this device?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one to answer, because the device that this person specifically is talking about is actually an ultrasound device. So it's not PEMF, it's not pulsed electromagnetic field. So the technology is completely different. So when we're actually talking about this specific question, there's not much of an answer I can give about this product, because it's not something that I specialize in. But I can relate this to PMF, because when we talk about bone healing, that's something that is very prevalent with PMFs, and something that the FDA regulate PMF therapy for is healing non-union fractures. So fractures that just won't heal. PMFs are applied and they help to heal. But with any industry, PMF is no exception. If you buy cheap, you normally do get cheap. And, this customer's saying they're looking at something that's $20, and, I think they're expecting probably quite a lot from it. My recommendation would be, no, it's probably not worth your time. We at NuMed, we sell devices from like £19 upwards to like £30,000. We give people an expectation on those products. If you're going to buy a device for £19, you need to have your expectations managed. If you have a recent injury and you just want to speed up the healing on one specific injury, and you want to try out PMFs, or if you just want to apply PMFs to try it out for sleep, then yes, you can use these devices. But for a long-term investment, they're not the devices you want to be investing in. A decent full body system is where we really try and push people to start in their PMF journey.
Brilliant. Once again, another great answer. Good way to relating it to PMF as well, because that is another thing that you see quite a lot on the internet. People kind of wondering, will this cheaper device have the same results as maybe the more expensive devices? But that is actually all the questions that we do have for this episode of the PMF podcast. If you do have any other questions, as I've already said, if you just leave them underneath the video or wherever you're listening from, and we will make sure to get them answered in the next episode.
Thanks for listening, guys.